You eat this almost every day. Toast in the morning, a sandwich at lunch. The most automatic buy in the store. The one bag you grab without ever turning it over. And the whole game is on the side you never read. The front sells a story, the back tells the truth. Here's the truth on America's best-selling loaf. Nature's Own promises never any artificial preservatives. And since last July, a federal lawsuit argues that word is false. An allegation, unproven, case still open. But the #1 bread in America is in court over the biggest promise on its own bag. And it isn't even the worst one here. I pulled the labels and the public records on 12 of the biggest bread brands and scored each on 5 things: grain, sugar, and salt, hidden additives, whether the front matches the back, and its record with regulators. 9 failed, 3 passed. We count down to the single worst loaf in the aisle, then the 3 worth buying, and a 3-second rule to check any bread yourself. Flip your loaf over. Number 9, Martin's potato bread. The gentle one, so we'll start easy. The promise is the color, that deep golden crumb that reads as butter, eggs, rich homemade potato bread. So flip it. Martin's own website tells you where that gold comes from. Turmeric and annatto, 2-color additives. Now, those are plant-derived and legal, so let me be clear. This is not a safety problem. It's a marketing problem. The bag is selling you eggs and potato. The label is selling you dye. Here's a tell you can see yourself. Hold a slice up to the light. That color is flawlessly even, corner to corner. Real egg and potato bake in patchy. A perfectly even gold is the signature of added coloring. And it doesn't stop at the paint. 2 separate sweeteners on one slice. Sugar and cane sugar syrup, 3 grams of sugar, plus a conditioner kit called Datem to strengthen factory dough, mono and diglycerides to keep it soft for weeks. So where does it lose points? On additives and on a front that doesn't match the back. The grain's ordinary, the sugar's mild. It's not dangerous, it's just dressed up. Against the scorecard, that's an avoid. Credit to Martin's, though. They hide none of it. It's all on their own website, which is more than some brands here can say. The next brand hides a dessert's worth of sugar behind a Hawaiian sunset. Number 8, King's Hawaiian. Established 1950 Hilo, Hawaii. Island bakery, family recipe, aloha in loaf form. So let's check the sugar. One slice of the sweet sliced bread carries 7 grams of sugar, 6 of them added. A single Oreo has about 4. So one slice of this bread has more added sugar than a cookie, and nobody eats one slice. The rolls are worse. 5 grams of added sugar each, 18% of the whole roll by weight. That's not bread that's a little sweet. That's confectionery with a crust. Try this the next time it's on your counter. Eat one plain with nothing on it, and notice that it tastes like dessert, because by the numbers, it basically is. And the Aloha, flip it over. Made in Torrance, California, about 2,500 miles east of Hilo. Shoppers actually sued over that packaging in 2021, and the judge threw it out, ruling the label plainly says California, so no one was legally deceived. Completely legal. The court just couldn't make the bread Hawaiian, or make it eat like anything other than cake. Where it fails, sugar first and foremost, and refined grain underneath the sweetness. At least King's Hawaiian admits it's sweet. The next brand charges you a premium for the word Farmhouse, then sweetens it with something no farmhouse has ever produced. Number 7, Pepperidge Farmhouse Hardy White. Everything about it is built to feel a step above. Stone kitchen imagery, rustic lettering, premium price. So do the flip test and count to the 3rd ingredient, in a loaf literally called Farmhouse. The 3rd largest ingredient is high fructose corn syrup, a liquid sweetener refined from cornstarch in a factory, the signature sweetener of soda. No farmhouse ever milled it. You can't without industrial processing. Behind it, soybean oil, more emulsifiers, and calcium propionate, a preservative that stops mold so the loaf sits longer. The same stack as the budget white bread, this brand prices itself above. Now, one genuine credit, and it's the right place to explain the bigger picture. The flour is labeled unbromated. Here's why a company brags about that. Potassium bromate is a flour treatment that makes dough rise faster. The International Agency for Research on Cancer flagged it as possibly carcinogenic back in 1999, and it's been banned for years across the European Union, the UK, Canada, China, and India, most of the developed world. The United States never banned it. California is the first state to, and only starting in 2027. Texas will soon force warning labels onto 44 ingredients in other countries already prohibit. And the Environmental Working Group still counts bromate in more than 200 American products today. Pepperidge deserves credit for skipping it. But sit with what it means that we skip the additive half the planet banned is a selling point a company prints on a bag. That's the baseline in this aisle. Pepperidge loses points on sugar, on additives, and on a farmhouse front. that doesn't match a factory bag. It failed. At least corn syrup is a sweetener you've heard of. The next brand put something in a plain honey wheat loaf that I read 3 times because I didn't believe it. Number 6, Kroger honey wheat, the store brand. The honest save a dollar choice, right? Give it real credit first. Flip it and whole wheat flour is the first ingredient. On grain, it actually scores full marks, better than most of this list. And that is exactly why nobody keeps reading. You see whole wheat, you see honey, you relax, you put it in the cart, keep reading anyway, past the honey, past the conditioners, and there it is, sucralose. Read it again, sucralose. That's a 0-calorie artificial sweetener, the exact molecule in those little yellow Splenda packets, around 600 times sweeter than sugar. Sitting in a plain honey wheat loaf, a parent drops into a lunchbox every morning without a second thought. Not a light bread, not keto, not a diet product. There's not one word on the front of that bag to tell you it's in there. Why hide it? Almost certainly because it keeps the sugar number on the label looking small while the bread still tastes sweet enough that you keep buying it. So it passes on grain and fails hard on additives and on marketing accuracy. An artificial sweetener the front of the bag never admits to. And here's what gets me. The flashy brands you're suspicious of, you check. The plain store brand with the friendly word honey in the name is the one loaf nobody ever flips over. And that is exactly where you'd tuck something you didn't want found. Quick gut check before we keep going. If you've already spotted one of these in your own kitchen, and most people have by this point, that feeling in your stomach isn't paranoia. It's you reading the back of the bag for the first time. And we're not even to the worst of it yet. The next 5 are the names you trust the most, which is precisely why they're ranked where they are. The more of your trust a brand is holding, the more it had to lose. Number 4 is a brand built entirely on being the healthy choice, and what it quietly settled in court 4 months ago, and is the reason I made this video. Number 5, Sunbeam. Pure nostalgia. Miss Sunbeam's been on the bag since 1942, the soft white bread of childhood. Here's a test you can run without opening it. Press down on the loaf through the bag and count how fast it springs back. Real bread dents and mostly stays dented. A loaf carrying a full conditioner stack bounces right back like a foam cushion. That spring is the additives doing their job. Now flip it and read them. High fructose corn syrup at number 3. Then the roll call. Sodium stearoyl, lactylate, calcium stearoyl, lactylate, mono and diglycerides, datem, ethoxylated mono and diglycerides, softeners and strengtheners, one after another, and calcium peroxide. Stop on that one. Calcium peroxide is a dough conditioner and bleaching agent in the same chemical family as the peroxide used to strip color from hair, and it's in the soft white loaf marketed to children since 1942, legal in the USA, not permitted for that use in a number of other countries. And there's history. In 2014, when the Environmental Working Group audited American bread for azotic carbonamide, the additive the press nicknamed the yoga mat chemical because it also makes foamed plastics, Sunbeam was on that list. The industry backed away from that one after the story broke. But the bleach family conditioner and the corn syrup are still on today's label. On grain, sugar, and additives, this scores near the bottom. One fair caveat. Sunbeam is baked by regional licensees, so the recipe varies by region. This is the label we pulled. Avoid. Now, the health halo itself. Number 4, Dave's Killer Bread. Yes, really. The most trusted loaf in the health aisle. Certified organic, whole grain, a great founder redemption story on the bag. This is the bread people reach for specifically to do the right thing, which is exactly why it belongs on this list. Trust is what's being sold, so trust is what we check. 2 findings, and I'll be precise, because this brand earned precision. First, flip it. In the flagship 21 whole grains and seeds, organic cane sugar is the 3rd largest ingredient, and the good seed loaf carries 5 grams of sugar a slice. A King's Hawaiian roll's worth of added sugar in a loaf marketed as health food. And organic sugar raises your blood sugar exactly like regular sugar does. Your body cannot tell the difference. Organic describes the farming, no, not what it does to you. Second, the record, the serious one. A class action alleged Dave's Loaves delivered less than half the usable protein the front of the package advertised. A judge let it move forward in January 2025, and this past March, 4 months ago, Dave settled, terms undisclosed. I'll be fair, and this is on the screen. A settlement is not an admission of guilt. Companies settle to avoid the cost and risk of trial without admitting anything. But you paid the premium, so you deserve to know it happened. And one more piece of fairness, because I score this both ways. Dave's slices are genuinely big, around 45 grams against a typical 28. So gram for gram, the sugar looks less alarming than the per slice number. But people eat per slice, not per gram. And per slice, Good Seed still matches the sweetest roll on this list, with 160 to 180 milligrams of sodium riding along. Here's how it scores. It earns real marks on grain and clean ingredients, genuinely better than the factory loaves, but it loses on sugar, and it loses on a marketing and regulatory record that a health halo brand held to its own promises can't shrug off. That's why it lands here and not lower. Keep this brand in mind, though. Dave's makes one loaf that's a completely different story, and it's coming in the safe list. First, the 3 biggest factory loaves in America. Number 3, Wonder Bread, the most American loaf there is. The balloons, the slogan about building strong bodies, a century on the counter. Flip it over, and it hands you the longest ingredient list of anything I pulled. Read the conditioners with me. Sodium stearoyl lactylate and calcium stearoyl lactylate, softeners, monoglycerides, mono and diglycerides, and distilled monoglycerides. 3 versions of the same emulsifier. Calcium peroxide, the bleach family conditioner again, calcium iodate, an oxidizer, datum, the strengthener, ethoxylated mono, and diglycerides. That's 9 separate dough conditioners in one loaf. 9. For comparison, European bakeries make this exact style of bread using vitamin C as the flour improver. 1 ingredient doing the job of 9. Then my favorite detail, count how many times sugar appears. 3 separate times. Sugar, then sucrose, then sugar again. Same sweetener, 3 names. Here's why that matters. Ingredients are listed in order of weight. So when one sweetener is split into 3 smaller entries, each one sits further down the list than the combined total would. That's a fact of how the label reads. Whether it's deliberate or not, I can't tell you, but the effect is that the total amount of sugar is harder to spot at a glance. 5 grams of added sugar per 2 slices, 180 milligrams of sodium. There's also ammonium sulfate, food grade, legal, used to feed the yeast, though it's better known as lawn fertilizer. In fairness, the label says contains 1 or more of the following. So a given loaf uses part of that menu. The menu is still the menu. On additives and grain, Wonder scores at the floor. And one fact worth holding, Wonder's owned by Flowers Foods, the same company that owns Dave's Killer Bread. 2 loaves you'd never guess were related to one owner. Hold that thought. Wonder failed comfortably. 2 left. Both put never or nature on the front, and both, right now, are explaining those words to a federal judge. Number 2, Nature's Own, the best-selling bread brand in the United States, the one I opened with. The front promises never any artificial preservatives, colors, or flavors. So flip it and test that. The first ingredient is enriched wheat flour, white flour. The Center for Science and the Public Interest, a watchdog auditing food labels since 1971, specifically names this exact loaf as a wheat bread, with more refined flour than whole grain. The front says wheat, the recipe says white. Behind that nature branding sit the usual suspects: stearoyl, lactylate softeners, mono and diglycerides, ammonium sulfate, and that word never. In July 2025, a federal class action was filed alleging it's false. Allegations, cases open, company entitled to its defense, but the biggest bread brand in America is in federal court defending the biggest word on its package. There's history too. In December 2021, the parent company recalled about 3,000 loaves of this exact bread, honey wheat, across 6 states because the bags held a different bread with an undeclared milk allergen. Nobody was hurt and recalls happen. I'm not failing it for a 4-year-old recall. I'm failing it for the front of the bag. Refined flour under the word wheat, and a never the company is currently defending in court. It scores at the bottom on grain, on additives, and on marketing accuracy. And once more, the ownership fact. Nature's Own is made by Flowers Foods. That's now 3 loaves on this one list: Dave's, Wonder, and the #1 seller in the country, all from a single owner. Nature's Own is a name, not a description. It didn't pass, and it wasn't close. So what beats the national bestseller for #1? A single brand that collected a federal warning letter, a lawsuit, and a sodium number you won't believe all at once. #1, the worst bread I've found. Sara Artesano. The name says artisan. The bag says always baked without artificial colors, flavors, and preservatives. Thick cut, premium priced, styled like it came out of a small bakery. 3 finding. The only brand tonight that needed 3. I'm saying the first source out loud because it's the most serious document in this video. On June 17, 2024, the FDA issued a formal warning letter to Bimbo Bakeries, the company that makes Sara Lee. Federal regulators found Artesano products were declaring an allergen on the label, sesame, that wasn't actually in the bread. That's misbranding. In the FDA's own words. In a letter on fda.gov, you can pull up and read right now. Not a blogger, not my interpretation. A federal regulator in writing. And the response got stranger. Rather than fix the labels, part of Bimbo's response was to intentionally start adding sesame to more products. Legal under current rules, but the Center for Science and the Public Interest called it a perverse response to food safety rules. Second, in November 2025, Artesano picked up its own class action, same story as Nature's Own, alleging the no artificial preservatives promise is false. Allegations unproven, case open. But count it, that's now 2 of the biggest bread companies in America in court over the front of the bag. Third, and go check this against your own pantry, 1 slice of Artesano smooth multigrain has 220 milligrams of sodium. A serving of potato chips has about 140. Read that again. The bread dressed up as the wholesome artisan, better for you choice has more salt in 1 slice than the chips you feel guilty about. That's not my math. It's the Center for Science and the Public Interests. And one more. Sara Lee's white made with whole grain, the loaf aimed at parents easing kids toward wheat, discloses that it's 32% whole grain, which means it's 68% not. Made with is doing enormous work on that bag, and the label backs the pattern up. On the original loaf, sugar is the 3rd ingredient and soybean oil the 5th, followed by calcium propionate and datum, the same factory kit as everything else, under an artisan name. This is the only brand tonight to score at the bottom on marketing accuracy and regulatory record at the same time. A warning letter, an active lawsuit, and a slice saltier than potato chips. And Sara Lee is owned by Grupo Bimbo. So here's the pattern, as a fact, not a theory. Numbers 4, 3, and 2, Dave's Wonder and Nature's Own, are Flowers Foods bread. Number 1, Sara Lee is Bimbo. You thought you were choosing between 9 brands. You were choosing between 2 owners. The worst thing in the bread aisle was never a chemical you can't pronounce. It's the gap between the front of the bag, written to earn your trust, and the back, written to survive a lawyer. 9 brands down, now the 3 that actually passed, and the 3-second rule that lets you check any loaf in any store for the rest of your life. These aren't consolation prizes, and they aren't the same 3 names every other video hands you. They passed all 5 tests, and one of them is a brand you just watched fail. Start with the gold standard, Food for Life's Ezekiel 4:9. While Sara Lee was collecting a federal warning letter, this brand does the opposite of everything you just watched. Flip it. 11 ingredients. Total. Organic sprouted wheat, barley, millet, lentils, soybeans, spelt, plus water, yeast, and salt. No flour at all. The grains are sprouted and baked, an older process than milling into flour. 0 grams of sugar, 3 grams of fiber, 5 of protein per slice. It scores about 36 on the glycemic index, the scale of how fast a food spikes your blood sugar, where white bread runs 70 or higher. That's a full sweep of the scorecard. Whole grain, no sugar, clean ingredients, an honest label, a clean record. Food for Life has been family-owned and baking in Corona, California since 1964. No multinational parent running the recipe. And here's the label tell that works on any bread. You'll find it in the freezer, not the bread aisle, because it has no preservative system to keep it shelf stable. That's the trade. A loaf that goes stale in a few days is doing what real bread does. A loaf that stays soft on the counter for 3 weeks was preserved to last that long. Neither's dangerous. But if you want additives, the freezer case is where the shortest ingredient lists tend to live. One more store-wide tell. If you see a whole grain stamp, only the version that says 100% guarantees every grain is whole. The basic stamp can sit on a mostly refined loaf. Ezekiel's about $7.50 at Walmart. Not cheap, but it's the ruler everything else gets measured against. Second pick, and yes, it's the brand you just watched fail at number 4. Sit with that for a second, because it's the most important idea in this whole video. The same company whose flagship hides 5 grams of sugar a slice and just settled a lawsuit also makes one loaf that is everything that flagship only pretends to be. Dave's Killer Bread Powerseed, the redemption I promised you. Do this the next time you're in the store. Pick up Good Seed and Powerseed at the same time. Same brand, same shelf, same price. Flip them both over and read across. Good Seed lists organic cane sugar 3rd and carries 5 grams of sugar a slice. Powerseed is sweetened with fruit juice instead of added sugar and comes in at 1 gram a slice, 5 times less, from the identical company, sitting 6 inches away on the same shelf. First ingredient, organic whole wheat, 4 grams of fiber. And it's the same independent record that convicted the flagship a minute ago. So this isn't me going soft on a brand I just criticized. It's the same scorecard landing on the other side of the line. The label tell does the work for you. Powerseed prints 1 gram of sugar per slice right on the front, so you don't even have to flip it. That is the entire lesson of this video standing on one shelf. Brands aren't safe or unsafe, loaves are. You never trust a logo. You read the loaf in your hand. Powerseed runs about $5.78 and it's in nearly every chain. Last pick, and it's the best value in America, full stop. Trader Joe's Sprouted Wheat Multigrain, $3.29. Read that against number 3. It's less than the Wonder Bread that needed 9 separate dough conditioners to do what this loaf does with 1. Flip it. The first ingredient is organic sprouted wheat berries. That is more than half the loaf. Not flour, the whole grain, sprouted and baked. 2 grams of sugar a slice. And its entire preservative system is exactly 2 things: cultured wheat starch and ascorbic acid, which is just vitamin C. Remember Wonder's 9 conditioners? Vitamin C is the single ingredient European bakeries use in place of the whole stack. So what you're holding is a $3 American loaf built the European way. In a store, most shoppers walk right past the bread aisle to reach. If you need a chemistry degree to get through the list by the 6th ingredient, put it back and reach for the one beside it. You now know more standing in that aisle than the marketing department ever bet you'd bother to learn. Before the one rule, let me answer the 3 questions you're already typing. Because on a video like this, the comments are always the same 3, and the honest answers are worth your next 90 seconds. First, isn't all bread just bad for you? No, and that's the whole point of tonight. This was never a video about bread, it was a video about specific loaves that failed specific tests. The winners are the proof: Ezekiel, 0 sugar and 11 ingredients. A $3 Trader Joe's loaf, preserved with nothing but vitamin C. Real bread, whole grain, short list, a gram or 2 of sugar, is a good food. The Center for Science and the Public Interest, the same watchdog I've quoted all night, calls a slice with no more than 120 milligrams of sodium and just a couple grams of sugar a genuinely good choice. Bread didn't betray you. 9 of these brands did. Second, what about sourdough? Isn't that the healthy one? Real sourdough earns it. True long fermentation drops the bread's glycemic index. That's the scale of how fast a food spikes your blood sugar. White flour bread sits around 70 on it. Real sourdough comes in near 54, so it hits your blood sugar noticeably softer. The same fermentation breaks down phytic acid, the compound in grain that blocks your body from absorbing its own minerals. So you actually get more out of what you eat. But here's the trap, and it's a flip the bag trap, so you already know how to catch it. Most sourdough on a supermarket shelf never saw a single hour of that fermentation. It's ordinary factory bread dosed with sourdough flavor, or sold as sourdough style. And both of those phrases are the tell. Flip it. Real sourdough reads like 4 things: flour, water, salt, and a live starter or culture. If you see added yeast, if you see a paragraph of dough conditioners, if you see the word flavor doing the heavy lifting, that's a costume, not a fermentation. You're paying artisan prices for the same loaf we spent tonight taking apart. Third, and this one quietly costs people the most, is gluten-free bread healthier? For most people buying it, no. If you have celiac disease or a diagnosed sensitivity, gluten-free isn't a wellness trend. It's medicine, and none of this is aimed at you, but for everyone else reaching for it because gluten-free simply sounds clean. Johns Hopkins puts it flatly: a gluten-free label does not make a food healthy. Strip the gluten out of bread, and you usually have to rebuild the loaf with rice starch, tapioca, potato starch, and extra sugar and fat just to make it hold together and taste like bread. Which is why gluten-free loaves are often more processed, higher in sugar and sodium, and lower in fiber than the plain whole wheat loaf sitting right beside them. You're not buying health, you're buying a health-sounding word, usually at double the price. And the smallest trap of all, because it's printed on half the bags in the aisle, the word wheat. Wheat bread means almost nothing. Nearly all bread is wheat, whole or refined. The only labels that guarantee the whole grain are 100% whole wheat or 100% whole grain. Anything softer, made with whole grain, multigrain, or just wheat, flip it and read the first ingredient. If it says enriched wheat flour, that's white flour with a suntan, and you already know how to leave it on the shelf. So if you remember one thing when you're standing in that aisle, make it this: flip the bag and count the ingredients. Real bread is 5 things: flour, water, salt, yeast, and maybe a little oil. Almost everything after those 5 is there for shelf life, texture, and cost. Not for you. You don't have to memorize a single chemical name or know what any of them do. You just have to count. A short list is a good sign. A list that runs past the fold is the bread quietly betting you won't read it. Count the ingredients, and when you can, buy from the freezer. That one habit clears almost every brand on tonight's list straight out of your cart. You are now the only person in that aisle who reads the back of the bag. So do the one useful thing with all of this. Send it to whoever does the grocery shopping in your house before their next run. Next time, we do this exact same thing to butter. Same 5 tests, same receipts. If your toast survived today, I'm not so sure your butter dish will. I'll see you then.